today we're going to talk about how to manage access to data sources in your data estate with Microsoft Purview. So that is one of the applications within Purview. So what I've done, can you see it? Because okay, I've created a short agenda, so I'm not going to explain what is Microsoft Purview, because I can talk a whole day on that one. But I will do it in a short way, and then we will talk about policies. So the policies, that is the data use management within Microsoft Purview. And at the end, we will do some wrap-up, and hopefully at the end of the session, you know what you can do with the data access management policies to get it working in your organization. So first thing, how many people have started to play around with Microsoft Purview? Yeah, look, that's pretty awesome. I think if I asked this question last year, nobody was putting his hand on. So in the last year, it has been changed really a lot. So what happened? I think 1 year ago, we had Azure Purview. And it has been renamed or rebranded to Microsoft Purview. So on the left side, we have the risk and compliance part. So that is the lifecycle management and that kind of stuff. And on the right side, we have the unified data governance. So today we're going to talk about the unified data governance part and not about all the other stuff there. Okay. What you can see that Microsoft Purview is changing a little bit from the data part more to the security part, and will be more a part of the data estate. So how can I identify my data landscape? How can I manage the risk? That are all the components from the risk and compliance. Currently, there are two different portals. You have the data governance portal, you have the risk and compliance portal, and they are working to get that more integrated more and more together, so that you finally will have one portal where you can do Microsoft Purview. Because if I look at my company, if I talk about Microsoft Purview, I'm talking about data governance. My colleague, the compliance consultant, is talking about Microsoft Purview, and we're talking on different levels on the same product. So if you look to Microsoft Purview, just in short, this is the whole overview which is currently available in Microsoft Purview. So the main part is data map, and that's the elastic data map where all the scanning, classifications, everything is happening. And today we're going to talk about one of the apps, so data use management. And the other apps, that's the data catalog, so where we can see the cataloging, so where we can see the assets. So if you talk about Microsoft Purview, if you talk about data, you're talking about assets. Data sharing. Currently in preview, I think last week they announced the new Microsoft Purview data sharing functionality. If you want to see that, just visit my blog. I just blogged 2 blogs on that, on data sharing and on data sharing lineage. There's 2 new functionalities within Purview. And data estate insights, it's more the reporting stuff. If you look to Microsoft Purview, yes, I'm going to talk very fast because 20 minutes is really short. So Microsoft Purview, actually what we can do with Purview, and that's one of the reasons they changed the name from Azure to Microsoft, we are scanning more than only Azure products. So we are scanning Amazon, Oracle, on-premise systems, as you can see, SAP, Teradata, and of course our Azure resources as well. And today the focus will be on the Azure resources. And of course what you didn't see, you can also scan your own Power BI tenants, but also cross-tenants. So if you have one corporate, so if you have Microsoft Purview, you will not install, you will not deploy multiple instances of Purview. Because if you want to scan your data estate, you want to have one instance across all your tenants you have, so that you can see, or your security officer can see directly, can see what kind of data is in my complete data estate. So if you have separate tenants, then yeah, you still have separate tenants, and you have separate classifications and separate stuff to maintain. So today, policies. How many people have been working with the new policies within Purview? Nobody? That's cool. What is Microsoft Purview Data Map Policy app? So it will give you a single pane of glass and cloud-based experience. So how many people are struggling around it? Okay, I have a new consultant or a new employee working for me. I have to give them access to data lakes. I have to give them access to resource groups. I have to give them access to my SQL database. Oh, and he's not allowed to see that part of the SQL database. He's only to see that, etc., etc. It's a lot of work. And you do mainly in the RBAC roles, and then you have ACL, then you have security, or the security roles in SQL. There are a lot of places where you have to define all the security. So a new data plane permission model that is external to data sources. So Purview, that's the part where we can deploy the policies to all these different resources. I'm not going to read all the thing, but I will share the slides afterwards so that you can read it afterwards. So there are currently, if you go to policies, if you go to Purview, there are a couple of things. We have collections, and collections is a kind of a hierarchy within Purview where you can define different roles on it. So I can say, okay, I'm allowed to see all the data in West Europe, and you are allowed to see all the data in North Europe. So you need to be a data source admin to start working with Microsoft Purview policies. And the second thing, you need to, if you want to create policies, you need to be a policy owner. So that are two roles you need to have to be assigned to you to start working on it. And the second thing is, you have to tell all these different policies. You will see data policies, self-service access policies, and DevOps policies. You need to have that option, data use management, enabled. There's a simple way, because you don't want to enable that for every single resource. This can be enabled also on subscription level. So once enabled on subscription level, all the resources within that subscription will have that option, data use management, automatically enabled. So you need to do that on resource level. So I already said we have 3 different policies: data owner, DevOps, and self-service. Let's dive in. So the first one is the data owner policies. It's currently in preview, so don't use it in production or use it on your own risk. Available for Azure Storage, Azure SQL, Azure Arc-enabled servers, resource groups, and subscriptions. And if you go to policies, you will get this kind of pain. So we have an option over here that we can say, okay, let me allow read or modify access to a certain data source, to a certain person or a group of persons. So the subjects are the persons or the group of persons, so the security groups. How does it look like? We have 2 different options over there to assign these resources based on data source. So I can give read access on the Azure subscription. So then I can go to the Azure portal and have directly read access on all the resources within that subscription. That's easy, or not? I don't have to go to the Active Directory. I don't have to set any rules over there. I can do it from Purview. And that's the same for all the other storages over there. So for Data Lake, Blob Storage, the Arc-enabled server, and the resource group. The second thing is that we also can define based on assets. And I already said, assets means that I can say, even on a table level, in a SQL database, to say, okay, you are allowed to see this table in this database. So also here, we have only the 3 options: Blob Storage, Data Lake, or Azure SQL database. If you use a Blob Storage or a Data Lake, I can say, you are allowed to see everything in this folder. Or even with the recursive option, that you have to see, that you can see everything behind that folder. And I can say read access to this folder, and I can say for example, modify access to another folder. So I can use a transfer folder to upload the files, and if I use a bronze layer, I only give them the read access. Let's dive into a SQL server. So what I can do, I can say you have read access on a database, on a SQL server, and then I have 3 different databases there. So in this case, we will take the Wild World Importers Data Warehouse. I can click on that one. Then I will see all the different schemas available which I can use. So in this case, if I want to give that group of people access to my dimensions or facts, I have to create 2 policy rules. One for the schema dimensions and one for the schema facts. And the last thing is, maybe I don't want to give them access to a schema. I only want to give them access to the table city or to the table customers. And then they will only have the read access or modify access on that table. Once created, it will take up around 20 minutes before the policy will be active. But there's also a stored procedure which you can execute on the SQL server, and then all the policies are applied directly. the next thing. So I have a DBA, and my DBAer needs to maintain my Azure SQL databases. But I want to give him access to, for example, performance monitoring or more to the audit part. But he is not allowed to see any user databases because there is data in there and he's not allowed to see that. So with the DevOps policies, which are not in preview anymore, they are in production, we can say, okay, give them access on a subscription or a database on 2 different DevOps roles. And it's the same way, it works in the same way. You can add the objects, and then what you will see, there is no, you will see the user database, but as you can see, no tables are there. You only see the views belonging to the performance or the views belonging to the audit. So let's have self-service access policies. What could be a reason to create a self-service access policy? Anyone an idea? No? Temporary access? More ideas? So I have a work student or a business analyst, and he needs to have access to a database. The great thing is, I can give him access, but then he has access forever. But I can also provision self-service access so that he can request access and that his manager can say, yes, it's okay that you will get access. And then your part as well, you can define an expiry time on it, so that you can say you will only have access for 1 week, or for 2 weeks, or for 3 weeks, for 1 month, or 2 months. And after that, the access is revoked, and nobody can access that database anymore. So that's the same thing if you build a Power BI report and you don't have access to the tables. You can request access to Purview, your manager will grant your access, and then you can start building your report, and then once it's ready, you can promote it to your test environment, and then you don't need the access to the database anymore. So what is happening? So what I do, I'm creating a data access request, and then you get like a logic app. So in that logic app, let me see, it's a little bit bigger like this. We need to define what kind of approval type is it. And so if I say in the part assigned to several people, then I say, okay, these 3 persons, they need to approve the self-service access or the data access request. But I can also say the first one in this group of people can grant the access. The second thing is that we can say, okay, listen, once we have done that, we can say the expiry date. And you will also get a notification that your request will expire. And this is pretty new. This is only released, I think, last month, that you can define these expiry settings. And that's really useful in your organization to revoke automatically the access to the data. What is happening? Oh. Sorry. I missed the wrong button. It's coming back. So I handled this one, the logic app. Then we get that the expiration functionality. And the last thing is that I can go to. So I'm in this case I'm the data engineer. I can go to Purview and I can click on the button Request Access because I want to have access to the facts of the database, and I will have to fill in a reason, and then the owner, so that's of the first part, the assigned manager, will get an email to approve automatically by email, and if you go to the portal, you will of course see that there as well, that you can approve it over there. So, if I look to the key takeaways, Microsoft Purview Data Policy provides you that single pane of glass. So cloud-based experience, and seamless integration with Microsoft Purview Data Map and Data Catalog. It's working really, really easy, so at scale, because there is a elastic layer under it. And how cool is that? Visibility into who has access. So if I look to that, because I see I have a couple of minutes left. If you go to Purview, probably everybody, a lot of people have seen this. We have an option over here that we can click on the data policies. So if you go to that data access policy, as you can see, I already have created one policy. Allow read on data as a fact to principal data engineer. So that means if I go to my SQL database, as you can see, hopefully you can see it, I logged in as a data engineer. I only see the fact tables over here. So I can do refresh, that you believe me, that's only access to the facts. If you enable policies on Azure SQL databases, as you can see, it will take a little bit longer to find out what is happening in the background, because this is normal, that it will take up to 30 seconds to get refreshed. So in the meantime, what we will do, I will create a new policy. So I will click on edit, in this case. I'm going to say a new policy, because I couldn't say in one policy statement access to facts and dimensions. So I have to create a second policy. I click on new policy, allow. On this, I can only read data because I don't need to modify the data because someone else already modified it, the data source. And in this case, I can click on the assets, the Azure SQL database. What is my server name? And of course, if you have more servers enabled, you will see, of course, more servers. I can click on continue. I will see every database in my system. And I just say dimensions. Add to who? To the data engineer. Click on OK, and I will save. So there's one trick. Before we go ahead, you will see that I have only the tables, the facts over here. I'm just going to log into that one. I will execute a stored procedure, which is looking in Purview to get all the policies and then execute them directly. This is really awesome for demo purposes, because now my Purview policy has been exited. I can click on tables and directly I can see now the dimension as well. So now I have access to the dimensions. I can say select top 1000, and if I try to edit the data, so I want to change this to 1. I'd say save. Then normally you will directly get the access that you don't have the update permissions on external policy action. So for me, this is really an awesome product on top of your Azure environment for your databases to maintain all the security on top of that. It's not supported yet for the SQL serverless views. Or SQL database, or the dedicated SQL pool, so nothing from signups yet, but hopefully it will come. This is the first start of all the policies. So I think I managed it in 20 minutes. I have 30 seconds left for a question.
Can you script out the policies, so in PowerShell or something like that?
Can you script down the policies? Yes, you can, because what you saw in the beginning, we have the Atlas REST API, so you can execute policies to the REST API, and then you can update them in Purview directly. Yes?
Is there any way to ingest the security settings that are currently within the data assets so that you can refine from like not moving the starting point?
Can you ingest the current security settings, which are already in the Active Directory, back to Purview? I think you have to script that down the same way. So get it out of the Azure Active Directory. So I'm not an identity specialist, but then the same thing that you can add them afterwards to the other resources.
And it's changing the permissions. Is it doing that inside the database, or is it going back out again?
It's go back out because you don't see anything of the policies within your database. So it's really maintained what's in the beginning of the system, of the presentation, in an external external party. It's
Slowing things up then, so every time it actually works out, you can see the table.
That was only the first time that when it was refreshed, and then after that I didn't see any performance issues on it.
Given that some of the security is defined outside the database, some of it's defined inside the database, is there a single view for audit or reporting purposes of exactly who has what access?
So to repeat the question, is there a single view to see what kind of security settings are inside or outside the database? That's correct. Sorry, I didn't deep dive in that too much. It was more like, how can I do it on the easiest way? And like the questions, how do I get it back from the tenant to there? I haven't thought about it, but there should be something, but it's still in the beginning of the.
Question. You obviously ran a store procedure to pull the policy down, to accelerate things. When someone raises a just-in-time access request and that gets approved, how long is there a delay then once the?
Yeah, I think maximum of 20 minutes, 5 to 20 minutes. And yes, coming back on to see what kind of policies are in the database, there is also in the same thing. I know that this time, last thing, to show you. Let me see. There are management views, and in this management views you can see list all the principles. This is stored in the management views that you can see what kind of access rights has been defined for your database. Sorry. So. Yeah, to finalize everything, what's coming next? So SQL MI is coming, I think, by the end of this month. It should be released there, but you can do a private preview if you use SQL Management Instance. And they are for free currently. We are Dutch, we like that. So the last thing, thank you for attending. Please do give feedback to the session so I can improve.